Hey everybody, it's Austin Solomon. Welcome to this week's episode of The Real. Today we're going to break down the differing types of values for a property. There's an appraised value, there's the market value, there's the assessed value, there's the fair market value. There's all these types of different values, and they kind of get mixed up sometimes. I know a lot of times when we're interacting with homeowners, there's a little bit of confusion around each one, which is fine. But I'm just here to do a quick episode just explaining what each one means. So the first one is an appraisal. So this is the most extensive process of determining the value of the property. So this is where you have like a licensed certified appraiser who comes out to the property and they do a deep dive into the house. They're going to take measurements. They're going to know the exact square footage. They document all of the upgrades, all the features of the property. And then what they do is they compare that to, between 3 to 6, sometimes more properties that have sold that are similar to that. And they prepare this appraisal report, which basically says, hey, the appraised value of your house is this, right? So that's the most extensive type of property evaluation. And the appraisal can cost anywhere between like $450 to maybe $650 and up, depending on the type of property. A lot of times when you're buying a house and you're using a lender, obviously the bank wants to make sure that the house is worth at least what you're paying for it, and that's why an appraisal is done. However, if you're a homeowner and you're looking to sell your house, sometimes you have an appraisal done, but what more often you have is you have an agent like myself prepare what we call like a fair market analysis or a competitive market analysis. So the market value might be slightly different, like from a competitive market analysis, where as an agent, what we're doing is we're doing something similar to what the appraiser did. It's not as extensive. We're looking at comparable properties that have sold in the area with similar features and similar size, etc. Sometimes, though, there is a little bit of difference between like an appraisal and like a market value. There's a lot of times where a house is appraised at X amount, but it might not sell for that amount. So an appraisal for the purpose of sale can sometimes be different. And what I mean by that is if you have a property might be worth a certain amount on paper, but the market might be slightly different, like what a ready, willing, and able buyer is willing to pay for that might be different than what the appraised value is. So a competitive market analysis, an agent would prepare that, and again, it's not quite as extensive, but it's really geared at, hey, where's the market at for your house? What is a ready, willing, and able buyer willing to pay for it? Then you go into values that like the city would assign to your property, right? This is just for tax purposes, like the assessed value of the property, right? So this is what the city assessor, the township, they assign a value to your property and they come up with an assessed value and they come up with the fair market value too. Most of the time, how do they come up with the assessed value is, hey, they take a fair market value and then there's like an assessment ratio so let's say that the fair market value of your house is $100,000 and the assessment ratio is like 90%, then you're being assessed on 90% of what they see as the fair market value. So your assessed value would be like X. Sometimes the assessed value is higher than the fair market. Sometimes the assessed value is lower than the fair market. A lot of times buyers will look at a house and they'll say, hey, they're asking $200,000 for this house. I see the assessed value is only $140. Like, what are they thinking, right? What is the seller thinking? It's way overpriced. Well, the problem with assessed value and the fair market value, which again just comes from the assessor for a municipality, is it might not be up to date. That value might have been calculated 5, 10, 15 years ago, and the homeowner might have like done some improvements since that property was assessed, and it's not always it's a good basis to go off of. It sometimes helps us informing an evaluation for the property, but it's not going to be even close to as extensive as an appraisal or an agent prepared competitive market analysis because it's not up to date. It's just what the assessor says that the property was worth whenever they came out. Again, a lot of times those numbers don't depict the true value of the property. And a homeowner, a lot of times they want to keep that assessed value low so that their property taxes are low. So they're not going to complain about it either. All right, to recap, we have the appraisal, the market prepared competitive market analysis, the fair market value, and the assessed value as well. So again, appraisal, that's determined by an appraiser. Competitive market analysis, that's done by an agent. Those are more like, hey, current valuations of the property's worth. And then you have what comes from the municipality, which would be the fair market value and the assessed value. Again, for determining the property value, those aren't as good of methods. It's a basis, but it's not always up to date. So thanks again, guys, for tuning in to this week's episode of The Real. Now that these are clarified for you, hopefully you can use them out in the marketplace. So thanks again for tuning in.